Hi, this is Mark at learnhowtogarden.com, and in today's episode of the show we're going to be showing you how to plant spinach. There's a link directly below this film if you're not already subscribed to us at Learn How to Garden. That'll take you straight over there. If you input your email address, it means I can let you know every time we put a new film up. It also means you get access to my monthly newsletter where I cover horticultural topics that I find interesting at that moment in time. Sometimes I cover topics that have made me quite angry at that moment in time, so worth a watch I think each month. Spinach, it's one of the most useful vegetables. If you are like us as a family and eat lots of Italian food, spinach is in there an awful lot. It's my youngest son's favourite veg, but it can be a bit of a tricky thing to grow. It'll bolt to seed given the chance. If you don't keep it watered enough in the summer, it'll go to seed. And spinach itself, and this is a classic spinach, has tiny little seed. I'm not sure whether we can get in here and see how small this seed is on my hand. It's very fine. And if I was going to be sowing this spinach seed, what I would do is put a drill across here, which just means a small sort of furrow, and I'd put 2 or 3 of these seeds along there at about 6-inch intervals. I tend to sow things like that, and it's called sowing in stations. And the reason I sow in stations is very simple. If you've sown at 6-inch intervals and you've put 2 or 3 seeds at each one, it actually means that you can weed the bed much more easily. And the biggest killer with most seedlings are weeds. Weeds are designed to outcompete whatever you're putting in. So if you know exactly where you've sown things, it means you can actually weed much easier. Something that I tend to grow, now this is called Perpetual Spinach from New Zealand. Very, very similar in taste, but doesn't bulk quite as easily. But the other thing I love about it, look at the size of these seeds. Much bigger, much easier to sow. And all we do with these is we use our planting board, and basically we take a couple of these seeds, push them in, fingernail depth. 6 inches apart, 2 of these seeds pushed in to a fingernail depth. Do that all the way along. We then leave about a foot between rows because these are big plants, and do exactly the same. And what I'll do now is just do that into this bed. The other option you have is called Swiss chard, whose leaves make a perfect substitute for this perpetual spinach or spinach. So when you're thinking about it, seriously consider either the Swiss chard or New Zealand perpetual spinach to grow rather than classic spinach. It's much, much easier. It'll crop over a long period. You can just continuously pick it. You don't pick the whole plant, and it doesn't bulk quite as easily. Once you've got all your seeds in at the stations, it should be a bit like a chessboard, and you're planting literally on the crosses of the chess, or the crosses of the lines, not the crosses of the chess. Losing the plot, it's the rain. Use your hand just to gently cover them in. Mark each line with a stick so that you know where you can weed. You'll be able to hand weed through here. If you don't have a little hand weeding trowel, treat yourself to it. It's probably one of the most invaluable tools. I mean, if you were to say to me which tools are invaluable, a good rake and a good hoe have got to be the most essential, and I'll be covering those in the next couple of weeks. I've managed to track down the world's best, and I'll be doing a comparison to show you how rubbish most rakes are and why they don't work, but I digress. The other option you'd have is you could sow your spinach or your Swiss chard into Jiffy 7s, which are little peat pots, so that then you could literally plant out. And if you're sort of only going to grow a few, that might be a better way to do it. One of the things I do love to do with Swiss chard, it's like rainbow colours, is to actually grow it in among my flowers. So I'm going to be planting some of that into a big flower pot with some nasturtiums and 1 or 2 other things to create an edible flower pot, which we're going to have on the patio. So that's another film that's coming up. But anyway, once you've done this, literally use your hand to cover it in. Leave those for 3 or 4 weeks to germinate. In about 6 weeks' time, I'll gently top dress this bed with some fish blood and bone just to give them some fertiliser then to get them going. I tend to top dress after things have germinated because too much fertility can actually inhibit germination sometimes. Very simple, very worth growing because you can pick it endlessly, but consider chard or perpetual spinach. It's not quite as fiddly as classic spinach. Thanks a lot for watching.